Hey, what's up, everybody? Marcos Vegas for Fight Up TV here in Los Angeles, being joined with Teddy Atlas. Teddy, thank you for inviting me up to your room over here in LA. A lot of things to talk about, but first, I want to touch on the Canelo versus Berlanga fight. It surprised me, surprised a lot of boxing fans, the choice of Berlanga for Canelo. But when you heard the news, what'd you make of it, and what was your reaction?
You know, Canelo's the chosen one. He's the golden boy. He brings in the numbers. He brings the money in. He earned it. He pay-per-view the whole thing, the cash cow. So he can choose guys, that he wants to fight better than other people can, or has the option that other fighters don't have. And they're not the one that's necessarily bringing the money in, or the kind of level of money that Canelo brings. So he has the ability, the privilege of picking a guy if it's smaller, if it's older, if it's young, less experienced, whatever it is. And listen, it's not a knock. I'm here not to make friends. I'm here to state things that I believe are based to the truth in this business, or attached to the truth in this business after 50 years in this business. So some people take it as attacking of him. Not at all. Just it's a fact that he's the guy who can handpick who he wants to fight. In Berlanga, I wasn't surprised. No, I'll be honest. I wasn't surprised at all. I figured he was the front runner. He's got an undefeated record. He's coming off a good win. He's building a following in the sport. Obviously, he has been. He's a young, talented fighter, but he's an inexperienced fighter at this level. He just started fighting the last couple of fights at a better level, and he's looked good. Berlanga, he's improved. I give him credit. And like I say, he's a talented kid. But it reminds me very much of Munguia. When they picked Munguia, they picked Munguia for a reason. Look, Munguia had more fights than Berlanga, but not the fights that count. Not of that level. Not of the level anywhere, of course, near Canelo, but not of a level or stage to prepare him for Canelo. Canelo's an experienced, solid guy. Strong, good puncher, good counter-puncher. He's slowing down a little bit. He's not as busy as he used to be. He might not be the same finisher he used to be. He definitely is starting to slow down a little bit. But he always gets up for the big fights, for the ones that he needs to get up for, it seems. He has that capacity to do that. And in Munguia, I felt that they were being very studious, very smart. They know how to pick guys. Where they picked Munguia, who I like a lot. Great chin, great heart, nice offensive fighter, but a guy who was a little short on defense, but had been improving. I give Munguia credit. He's improved the last 2 years. He really has. But not enough. And again, not with the seasoning that he needed to deal with Canelo right now. He wasn't quite ready. I felt, and I said that. I said it on the air before the fight. I'm not doing Monday morning quarterback when it's over, and then I'm trying to look smart. I'm saying whether I look smart or dumb. I'm consistent saying what I said before the fight. Sometimes I'm wrong. That time I was right. That Munguia wasn't quite ready for Canelo. I feel the same exact way again with Berlanga, and I feel they're using the same metrics to pick him as they use with Munguia. That they feel that Berlanga's not quite. Maybe he's 2-3 fights away from being ready for this kind of move, this kind of step up. And but the only X factor in it is the age. That Canelo is getting older. I think there's a little slippage, not a lot, but a little slippage. And again, not a knock on him. I mean, everyone gets older. But that's the only X factor for me, is if between the Munguia fight and now, Canelo has aged a little bit. And if he has, well, then that catches Berlanga up a little bit. That makes up for some of that slack I'm talking about as far as not quite having the seasoning and quite being ready. That helps him, if that's the fact. I don't think it's the fact yet. I don't think yet, especially with a guy who's going to engage him. I think that I said the same thing about the Munguia fight. If I was, for my 2 cents, if I was training Munguia, I would have kept it on the outside. I wouldn't have engaged him. I would have kept it on the outside with the jab, with the length, with the size, and used his young legs to keep Canelo from doing the thing that he can still do real well, which is counterpunch, and catch you a big punch. If you're on the outside jab and you're giving him nothing to counter, you're making it much more difficult. Now you got to make him use his older legs to come and get you, and that's when you start to sometimes show the problems that an older fighter can have, is when you force them to use their legs to come forward to do those things. But Munguia was a fighter and he fought him. He engaged with him. Berlanga's a fighter. I don't know. Maybe his team will get him to fight more on the outside, use his legs more, box a little bit more. I think that would be the way I'd go about it, and would give Berlanga the best chance that he could have in this fight. And hope it doesn't go to the scorecards in a close fight, because you ain't getting a close fight with Canelo. I mean, for the most part. I mean, Beaver won, 11 out of 12 rounds, and I don't think I'm being unfair. And what happened? On the scorecards, it was a close fight. I mean, which I think was absurd, but I think there's a few things in my sport of boxing that I've been in 50 years that sometimes can be a bit absurd.
A lot of fans aren't happy, though, with the choice. They were wanting David Benavidez, or at least someone who seems to pose a challenge for Canelo that, has a real shot at beating him.
Canelo's not in a position where he has to take those risks. Maybe obviously there's a time in everyone's career where they are. He's not in that position no more. He's the golden goose. He makes the money, all the money, a lot of it. And he doesn't have to take fights that are 50-50 fights, or even put him possibly as an underdog, even the possibility of that. It's not mandated in his world. He don't need the money. He don't have to take those fights for the money. He don't have to take it for the prestige. He don't have to take it for the legacy in his mind. He's done enough to have that legacy, which he has. So it's a matter. It's a matter of what's important to him. Is it important to him to answer critics? I don't think it is at this point in his career. And I'm not saying it has to be. He has the right to do what he wants and go sail off into the sunset if that's on his own terms. If he was prone to hearing the noise out there, you just touched on it, of the critics that say, hey, he's dodging a guy that, if he wanted to call himself the best 168-pounder, he should have fought Benavidez. Well, if Benavidez was still in that weight class, which Benavidez still would go down to it, obviously, even though he's moved up to light heavyweight, he would go right back down to it. He's made that clear. If he could get a Canelo fight, he went up to test the waters at 175 because he can't get a Canelo fight. But, again, I get the criticism. The fans want the fights they want. They want the most competitive, the best fights. But Canelo, some of the fans would be surprised to hear me say this, because I've been critical of him, but only when I think I needed to be. And he didn't take it well. He doesn't take criticism too well. And that's part of the problem when you're insulated from the critics, where you live in your own bubble with everyone around you who's on a payroll, and that's just going to echo what you want to hear. You're the best, you're the greatest, freak everybody out. I went and made a comment that he's not the greatest Mexican fighter of all time. Not a knock on him. As what it was was a reminder to the fans out there, the people that are making these judgments, of how deep, how steep the history of the great Mexican fighters are. I think they forgot. I don't think they realize how special the list, the laundry list of Mexican fighters that have won titles, that have fought with honor to represent their country. It's a quite a list. It's quite impressive, and to put Canelo at this point on the top of that list, I just thought it was wrong. I mean, there's some people think it's right, fine, but what bothered me was that a lot of these people that were advancing that mindset or that notion that he should be the greatest, they don't even know. I was in conversation with some of them, and some of them, quite frankly, were journalists. And I said, do you even know who these great Mexican fighters were? Do you know the names? Do you know the fights they fought? Do you know the competition they fought on a regular basis? I mean, and if you did, I don't think you'd argue with me, or you'd get as angry at me. And again, he got insulted. He took it as an insult. His fans, some of them, took it as an insult, and it wasn't meant that way at all. It was meant as a way of really giving proper respect to the great champions of Mexico, that they were not forgotten, that they should be respected in a way that they deserve, that they earned in the ring. So again, when he got all mad and insulted, and people around him got all insulted and said a few things back at me, that to me, that's thin-skinned, that's immature. Fine, that's his prerogative, how he wants to behave with that. But I stand by what I said. He's not there. He's not there. He's done real good. He's been a real good fighter. And then those things, they always get twisted. They always get morphed into something that didn't come out of my mouth. Maybe it came out of a reporter's mouth to make it a little spicier. And that's unfortunate if they're that unprofessional and dishonest. It's too bad. But it didn't come out of my mouth where, it wound up being, like I said, twisted and morphed into where I said along the lines of Canelo's, he's not even he's
like not the great. He's just not the greatest Mexican fighter.
Yeah, like he's not even like it became a negative, like he's not even that good, or like, which of course is not true, and of course was never said by me. He's or he's whatever it was. I can't remember exactly.
I think it's something like overrated or something like that.
Yeah, and that's honest. That's accurate. I think he was overrated. They took that as saying like he's not that good. No, I didn't say that. When you make him number one, again, with the history of champions that you've had in that country, wow, you make him number one again, you better know what you're talking about. And some of them, I just didn't feel they knew what they were talking about. So, yeah, I did. That's true. I did say he's overrated. But I said he's overrated in the comparison of saying he's, the top or the second or the third. No, he has not, in my mind, established himself, earned that spot yet. I know he's won a lot of titles, but he's also picked guys to fight to win some of those titles. He's been able. He's also a guy that when he did step up with a legitimate guy, or a really legitimate guy like Bevel, he lost 11 or 12 rounds. He lost to Mayweather every round. I know he was younger, but it's still a loss. I thought he lost to Lara. I thought it was very close, like a 1-point fight. I thought it was very close. I thought he lost to Triple G the first fight. I don't think too many people, even Mexican fans, would argue with me that there's no way that was a draw. But, okay, I think we know what happens in boxing when one guy is making more money than the other guy. They get some favoritism sometimes in the scoring. It happens. I mean, it's part of this game. Unfortunately, it's not always the best part of the game, but it is part of the game sometimes. I thought he lost his second fight to Triple G. Different kind of fight. First fight, Triple G pressed him, pushed him, fought on the inside with him, and won the fight. I thought he won the fight fairly handily. Canelo represented himself well, showed a good chin, showed heart. First time he was ever in those deep waters, first time with that kind of fighter, but he lost. The second time, Canelo was the guy pressing the fight. Canelo had grown. He had gotten better. He had gotten more confident. He had matured. He was the guy pressing the fight. But I thought that Triple G fought enough in spots. He was older. He picked spots to fight him and then spots to use the jab. And I thought he used the jab magnificently on the outside enough to win enough rounds to win that fight. But, again, to be called the great, he hasn't. The fights that he has been able to move up, and he's moved up in those weight classes, he's had the privilege to be able to, pick his spots and pick guys. I mean, Danny Jacobs, another one. That was a really close fight. I'm not saying he lost it, but very close fight. I'm just saying that the other on that list of great Mexican fighters, they had to fight tougher competition in order to get to the place they got to, for me to judge them the way I judged them. And they didn't have the benefit, it was a different time. They didn't have the benefit of pay-per-view. They didn't have the benefit of being the cash cow, being the guy that is going to be catered to and taken care of and looked out for, and have those advantages. Canelo's had a lot of advantages, and it comes with the territory of being a different time and being that guy who does bring those numbers. I mean, you go through the history of the sport. The guys, when there was those special guys, whether it was Ali, whether it was Tyson, whether it was whatever, when you had those special guys that were on top, if you fought them, you got paid more than you normally got paid in those kind of fights. You got paid more. And if you got paid more, there was a reason you were getting paid more. That guy was bringing the money in. And that guy usually would probably get the benefits if a fight was, if a fight was tight, if a fight was really closely contested. But he's a good fighter, Canelo. He's had a good, long career. It's still going. Again, was I disappointed he didn't fight Benavidez? That's his choice. I would have rather seen him fight Benavidez. There's a reason for that fight. I mean, to me, he was the best 168-pounder. If Canelo's going to call himself the best 168-pounder, he's got to fight the other best 168-pounder. I thought that was him. But he only has to please himself. And again, he's not in a position of having to be hungry to do that. He's not in a position of, having to take chances. His career is intact. His legacy for him is intact. Will he be with a guy like Teddy Atlas, a guy that, if he doesn't fight Benavidez, that he will never be considered in the top echelon of the Mexican fighters, the top? Yeah, he will, because he would need that kind of dance partner. Ali needed Frazier. I mean, you need those kind of guys to truly cement your greatness to the public. But really, one of the reasons why those Mexican fighters to me are so special, and other fighters throughout the history of the sport, is because they themselves, the public didn't have to demand it. Pundits didn't have to demand it. The organizations didn't have to demand it. They demanded they fight the best guys available, the best guys, because they wanted to know. Really, it's not just idle talk. It's the truth. Those guys wanted to fight the best guys because they wanted to be the best, and they felt the only way they could do that was fight the best. They had to do it. They mandated it. You didn't need a WBC, a WBA, or IBF mandate. No, they mandated. They wanted to be tested against the best because they wanted to know that they were the best. And they also understood that your greatness, part of your greatness, is the ability to fight somebody who will draw that out of you. These guys understood on some level that there's stuff inside of them they don't even know. They don't even know yet. They don't even know. They know they're really special, but they don't even know how far they can go. And the only way to find that out is to be in with a guy who will make you find that out, that will take you to that other place. They really did. They knew they needed that. And it's like Canelo doesn't act like a guy who needs that right now. Like,
do you feel that like he thinks like, well, I fought Floyd, I fought Canelo, I already, been with those guys that have, the Mayweather one might be a bad example, but I think
people, you mean?
Yeah. That like, hey, look, I've done those things. I've fought these guys.
But he didn't beat him. And, he didn't beat him, and he didn't get taken to that place of, another gear or another dimension of himself. He didn't get taken to that place. And maybe in the Triple G fights he did. Maybe those fights, the closest he came to it, to be honest. And of course he had a disappointing performance in the third one, because Triple G was, he's old, and it showed. And yet he was able to stay in there, at least late in the fight, where it was more competitive than people thought it would be at that stage of both their careers, And Canelo maybe it was out of respect for Triple G. I don't know. But he didn't step on the gas to do what it looked like or it seemed like he should have been able to do with a Triple G at this point in his life, at that point, which was an older point, a much older point. And look, Triple G's great, so maybe that was it. He felt that Triple G wouldn't allow him to, so he settled into a place that just allowed him to win the fight, without risking going any further or any deep in the pool, if you will. But when you, these great fighters that I really look at as great, even of the more modern era, whether it was Sugar Ray Leonard or any of them, Marvin Hagler, they seeked out the best fighters for the reason I just said. They knew it would bring the best out of them, and they wanted to see that best. They wanted everyone to see it. They wanted to see it. They wanted to know. And Hagler was a guy that there's a legendary story about him that I know is true, that when the Petronelli brothers were bringing him up, he wanted to go to Philadelphia. Philadelphia had the best middleweights in the world at that time. And he wanted to go to Philly. And he was the promoters in Philly actually told the Petronellis, why are you bringing him here? He don't need it. He don't need it. He don't need to go through this part of the country, so to speak. He don't need to go through this neighborhood. He can go right around and get to where he insisted. The Petronellis said it. They said, it's not our call. He insisted, as a manager, yeah, we understand what you're saying. He insisted. He said, the best guys are there, that's where I go. Because I want to test myself against the best. And he lost. He lost, I guess, to Boogaloo Watts, if I remember right. I think it was Willie the Worm Monroe. I think it was Boogaloo Watts. But anyway, he lost. And then, of course, what did he do? He fought the rematch, and he won. But he learned from the loss. He got better. He wouldn't change it. That's part of what made him so great, where he had the greatness later in his run. He went when he was getting older in his career, a little longer in the tooth. He goes and picks John Mugabe, who's undefeated with all knockouts, who could knock 2 brick buildings down. And he said, I want him. Who wanted John the Beast Mugabe, who knew how to fight? He was never the same after Hagler, but knew how to fight, could punch like hell with either hand. Who wanted Mugabe when you were in a position that Hagler was in, but you didn't have to have him? Nobody except Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler wanted him, and he destroyed him. But he took a lot in that fight. That fight took a lot out of Hagler. But, again, Hagler was... That's why I talk in these ways about guys like Hagler or Sugar Ray Leonard or, you go back to the eras of the 30s, 40s, forget about it. Those guys had 200 pro fights, 300 pro fights almost, 100 knockouts. And they fought everyone. Everyone. They fought them 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Why? Because they wanted to be the best. And they had to answer to the worst critic, their harshest critic, themselves. You had guys like Henry Armstrong. Henry Armstrong, I think one time he fought, close to 40 times in 1 year. That's a career. So, it was like 30, maybe 35, 30, 38. And there were 10-round fights. Some of them might even been 15, but they were 10-round fights against top guys. Top guys, this is a guy who fought. He won the featherweight, and then he went up and won the lightweight, the welterweight. No in between titles, no junior titles where they won 400 titles nowadays. Full weight class titles. And then he went up and fought Severino Garcia at middleweight and beat him. And they made it a draw, 15-round draw, because he wouldn't do business. Really, it was that simple. And so he should have won 4 full weight, but he was pretty damn good. Featherweight, lightweight, welterweight champ, could have been middleweight. And he defended them simultaneously within, 3-month period or whatever it was. What drove a guy to do that? Greatness. Greatness. And again...
do you think then, based on that greatness is not really driving Canelo at this point now? It's more just business. It's the purses. It's the money.
And the satisfaction with his status quo, where he believes he's established that already. He might believe he's the greatest, because there's people that will help him believe that. And that's fine. That's fine. It's open. That's open to people's opinions. It is. It's always is. Open to people's opinions who they think is better than someone else from a different era. But I think that is a combination of what you just touched on. He's got enough money for 10 lifetimes. As far as the greatness mantle, that thing to hang up there, I think that in his mind, he has it. Or at least he has enough of it to be satisfied, because people around him will agree with him that he has it. But again, he's a guy that I laugh at his success and how thin-skinned he still is, like immature in a way. Like when I make a statement like that, hear the statement. It's not saying you suck. It's not saying you're not respected. I'm saying the opposite. But I'm just saying that I don't think that people appreciate enough of how great the competition you're going up against when you're talking about the greatest of all time in Mexico.